Hey, it is Kenny for Kenny's Audiophile Record Reviews. Thank you very much for viewing my channel. Please like and subscribe. I really appreciate that. In this video, I'm going to discuss the SACD and the LP or LP set that I most anticipated purchasing and listening to amongst all the records that I have. I think I've narrowed it down to those two, but we'll discuss that in this video. I also want to talk about another topic after that, and that is the unrealistic expectations of record collectors and audiophiles. I'm going to have a very brief conversation about that. But, before I get to that topic, I just purchased this as of the recording of this video or posting of this video. I have another copy of this somewhere, but this might be the best copy I purchased. I purchased this today, and those who are knowledgeable about this album maybe can give me some information. I already looked on Discogs, but it has a matrix numbers, but there's a 1S on all four sides. It has I printed in the dead wax. I think that's Indiana. It has Camden, New Jersey printed on the label. So this may be an early repress or a first pressing, or like I said, early repress, but I'm looking forward to listening, ultrasonically cleaning this and listening to this record, and eventually comparing it to the Analog Productions 45 RPM version of that record, which I plan to purchase in the future. But getting to the most anticipated SACD that I was eagerly anticipating purchasing and listening to was the first one I ever purchased, and it was Miles Davis Kind of Blue. Now, this is a multi-channel version of the SACD. I think it's a Sony Legacy version. And like I said, I first listened to this on a multi-channel setup that I had at the time in my former residence. And I was really blown away by the sound at the time. You know, hearing Miles Davis, Cannonball Adderley, Bill Evans, Brother John Coltrane, and a 5.1 multi-channel format was quite pleasing at the time. I was really pleased and quite satisfied with the sound at the time, and the 5.1 sound, and also the stereo sounded much better than a normal CD, and I was really quite pleased by this one. But like I said, it was the first SACD that I purchased, and I was really anticipating the elevated sound of SACD. And like I said, this one did not disappoint. So this is probably the SACD that I most eagerly anticipated purchasing, receiving, and listening to. Miles Davis, Kind of Blue. Now, LP, there's many of those over the years that I've anticipated, listening to and purchasing and listening to. Like, for example, some of these old school direct-to-disc records. This is a 45 RPM Charlie Bird record. Direct-to-disc recording. And some of those direct-to-disc recordings back in the day really sound great. Or some of these knotless half-speed records. This is Joni Mitchell's Court and Spark album. Or this Duke Ellington direct-to-disc on M&K Real-Time Records. Bill Berry and his Ellington All-Stars. Some of those direct-to-disc and, like I said, 45 RPM records really sounded great at the time, and they still do. But the record that I most anticipated purchasing and listening to was not Miles Davis UHQR Kind of Blue. This is the first UHQR that I purchased, and I was really anticipating the sound of this record, and listening to it and listening to the sound stage, and I was quite pleased by this 33 1/3 version of the record. This sounds amazing. But because of that performance, because of that UHQR pressing, I was anticipating even more another UHQR, and that is, or was, Steely Dan, Asia. His original album was very well recorded, very well mixed, very well mastered. And so because of that, and because I love the original album so much, this is probably the LP that I most anticipated purchasing and listening to, because, like I said, the original version was very well mixed, very well mastered, and sounded sounded great until I got the UHQR, which sounds out of this world amazing. That's an amazing version of Asia, and I love it to death. It's just simply spectacular. So the SACD in summary is Miles Davis Kind of Blue, Sony Legacy. And I think I purchased this maybe, 23 to 25 years ago. I forgot the time frame. But this is the first SACD that I purchased at that time, 23 to 25 years ago. That's the first SACD that I listened to. Asia, UHQR, issued by Analog Productions. Album that I most anticipated listening to because of the great performance of the UHQR Miles Davis Kind of Blue. Excuse me. But I would like to talk about another topic, and that is the unrealistic expectations of record collectors and audiophiles. And I'm going to give you an example and go a little bit further in the discussion briefly. In the early 80s, I was really looking forward to buying a Carver C9 sonic hologram generator. It's a device that elevates and enhances the stereo soundstage, the stereo image. It makes it more vivid and more realistic. And at the time, I was reading, ads and, publications and maybe a few reviews. And I was a college student in the early 80s. I just worked during the summer, so I was saving up for that device. Oh, they didn't cost that much at the time, but still I was saving up for it. And while I was saving up for it and reading these reviews, in my mind, I elevated what that device could actually do more and more and more to perhaps an unrealistic level, combined with the fact that my system at the time was not nearly as good as my system now. So I was probably, I shouldn't say probably, I did have unrealistic expectations of what my system could deliver with that device and what that device can do in general. It was just simply unrealistic. I had this grand vision of hearing Paul McCartney, Ringo Starr, George Harrison, John Lennon in a vivid manner, more vivid than that device can actually deliver, because I said I overhyped it in my mind. More of a height, more of a level that device, even used under the best of systems, probably couldn't deliver. And I think some of us as record collectors and audiophiles do the same thing to this day. Perhaps like with some of these $150 UHQR box sets, or some of the expensive sets issued by Impex Records, Mobile Fidelity, or Craft Recordings. Sometimes I think because of the price of these records, in our minds, we have unrealistic expectations of what those records or record sets can actually deliver based on the record formulation, based on the height, and based on the price. And sometimes we take that and have this vision in our mind that's unrealistic. And also, some of us have these systems that are not capable of maxing out the sonic performances of some of these records as well. And that combined can lead to a very unsatisfactory listening experience because of these unrealistic expectations. And in return, we go to these some of these YouTube channels and leave negative reviews about some of these sets or online. And I think in part it's because of unrealistic expectations in our minds of what they should actually do, when in actuality, I think performance improvements in records, by and large, are usually incremental. They oftentimes, not always, oftentimes they're not blown. These UHQRs and these Impex records and these craft recording records, these deluxe box sets, they beat some of these previous issues, but they don't blow them away, is what I'm trying to say. And I think in our mind, unrealistically, we think they should. And oftentimes, in actuality, they probably shouldn't. Granted, they're incremental improvements, but in our minds, we expect, because of the price, these huge improvements. And sometimes, and oftentimes I should say, that's very unrealistic. Like I say, we build up what we think they should be, and that's kind of out of line what they actually are. I think sometimes we build up unrealistic expectations as record collectors and audiophiles. Please leave your comments in the comment section below about that topic and what you think is the best or the SACD and LP that you most anticipated receiving during your record collecting or audiophile career. Please leave your comments in the comment section below. Thank you very much for viewing my video. God bless, strong love, and keep the peace worldwide.